Hey guys, Ryan here from All Mine Ranch, and today I decided to do a quick little video, part one of two, on five reasons why you should move to Cochise County, Arizona, which is way down in the southeast corner at the Mexico border. It's an interesting place for sure, and there's some good reasons to move here. So if you're considering it, if it's on your short list, let me give you 5 reasons that I think you should. And then in the next video, I'll do 5 reasons why you should not move. Actually, 7 reasons why you should not move to Cochise County. So the first reason, or number 5 actually, let's do it in reverse order, is that land overall is pretty darn affordable here. It's not as affordable as it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago from what I'm told, but overall, compared to other places, land overall is fairly affordable. A lot of it's zoned, agricultural or rural, RU4. It's, maybe $5,000 an acre, sometimes less, sometimes more, depending on if you buy a single acre or you're, doing 40 acres. But most people do buy land here in 10 acre and larger parcels. 40 is a very common size, and if you do that size of a parcel, depending on the features and how close you are to civilization, if it's good water or not, your price is going to vary. But overall, it's pretty affordable, and not just the land, the houses as well. So I paid for my first 13 acres, plus some outbuildings and, something to get me started here with cisterns and a septic. I paid $129,000. Now, some people told me I was an idiot for paying so much because historically, just 13 acres in Cochise County, could have been had for $20,000 not that long ago, but in my case there was lots of improvements. So that just gives you a rough idea. So anytime you can move anywhere and maybe buy a house and have some land and have room to breathe and do your own thing and not spend $300,000, $400,000 and be locked into a 30-year mortgage, I think that's a pretty good thing. So affordable land is reason number 5 to move to Cochise County. Number 4 is going to be low population overall. It's not crowded here. There's not really any street lights. There's one in the town of Bisbee. There's a bunch in the town of Sierra Vista, which is one of the bigger cities, bigger towns. There's also a little town called Benson. There's Douglas. There's a few towns, but by and large, you've got a 1 lane in each direction highway to get to each town. Once you're in the town, there aren't very many lights. It's not crowded. It's not dense. You don't hear people booming their bass and making noise and honking. It's just quiet, which I suppose is sort of typical small town, type of a vibe, but it's definitely pronounced here. And because it's desert, people do want peace and quiet. And so if someone were to come in and make a whole lot of noise, they probably wouldn't get treated very well. So I guess that's a good reason. If you want the peace and serenity of the desert, where it's not crowded and you got room to breathe and do your own thing without people breathing down your neck, Cochise County is actually a perfect spot for it. Reason number 3 is moderate weather. Now, it's all relative, right? This is southeast Arizona, but a good portion of Cochise County is above 3,000 feet. There are portions of it that get up to 8,000 feet perhaps. I'm just a hair under 5,000 feet. And because of that elevation, for Arizona, it's going to run about 10 degrees cooler than if you were in, say, Tucson, and it's probably 15 to 20 degrees cooler than if you were in Phoenix area. I suppose it's a lot more like northern Arizona in that sense, but we're a little bit less likely to get snow down here, although we do get snow. There is all 4 seasons. There's definitely a winter with some snow, not really any ice. There's definitely a spring. We get our monsoon, summer. Fall is a distinct season. So overall, though, the weather is pretty nice. Right now, we're actually going through a hot spell. There's been 2 or 3 weeks straight of nearly 100 degrees, but it's not, again, as bad as Tucson, which is getting over 100 degrees for like a month straight. We're pushing in the low, mid-90s, occasional high 90s, but then it cools down a little bit at night. Not so much last night. I had trouble sleeping because of the warmth. But moderate climate for Arizona is a big draw. I would not, having lived in the Phoenix area, I would never live there again, especially with global warming. It's going to soon be 120 there on a regular basis in the summer. And to me, that's just not tolerable. So mild weather is reason number 3. Number two, natural beauty of the land. I happen to sit in a spot that is on the the upslope of a big valley that is surrounded on three sides by mountains. So I'm in a kind of a nestled spot, which is really cool. But overall, the desert here is absolutely beautiful. There are parts of the year where it's really dry, especially in the, late winter or spring before the monsoons hit, where everything's getting, the brush gets dried out and it's not quite as pretty. But overall, the mountains, the sunsets, the cloud formations, the rainbows, the storms, the birds, the bees, the nature here is super accessible. It's right outside your door. If you don't buy a house in the suburbs, which I don't think you should if you're moving to Cochise County. I really actually don't understand the people who live in Sierra Vista in subdivisions right up against the highway, so they're dealing with crowds, people, noise, no views, etc. It's like, why even bother to live in this whole region if you're not going to give yourself a little breathing room and buy an acre or two of land so you can, do your own thing without people breathing down your neck. So natural beauty is the short answer for number two of the, top 5 reasons to move to Cochise County. I'm really in awe. In fact, just the other night I was watching a storm, looking around. It was raining, it was stormy, but the sunset was happening and the rain was lit up orange throughout the valley. And it was literally one of the most beautiful scenes I'd ever seen in my life. And I've been around the world. I was just in awe at the natural beauty of the land here. So it's a great reason. And then reason number 1, I hinted at it before, it's the everyone is friendly vibe for the most part. Like many rural towns in America or small towns, people are just not in as much of a rush. They're not doing brutal commutes. They're not sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic. The stress level is a little lower here. There are more retirees who obviously move at a slower pace, but it's not quite as bad as Florida, where I grew up. So overall, people are less stressed. They're not as driven by money. A lot of people here are lower income or living off Social Security. So they're not in that go, 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 make, money, money, money type of mindset like was very common in Southern California. So in my neighborhood, people here, when they're driving by each other on dirt roads, everyone waves at one another. And even though I don't have many neighbors, I have 2 or 3 that are moderately close and a few more that are a little further. Everyone's friendly. People have just, ever since I moved here, will just pull up on my land and, make sure it's cool. But they'll come over and introduce themselves and say, hey, I just wanted to introduce myself. And we talk, we get to know each other, we swap phone numbers. So if I had an emergency or anything like that, I have, 3 or 4 contacts in my phone that are willing to help out. And in turn, I'm willing to help out and do help out my neighbors around here. So it's amazing that even though it's less dense and less populated, people are friendlier, and there's better neighborhoods and better neighbor situations than in most mid-size or large-size cities. So friendly people, low stress, a willingness to help. People like to talk at the store. There's not always a line behind you, so you can talk to the cashier or shoot the shit with the manager or whatever you want to do. If you want to be social, there's plenty of opportunity to do it. So even though the population is low, there's a good chance compared to where you're living now, and Dallas is my immediate, frame of reference where I lived before. The people here are just more neighborly, more friendly, more willing to talk, and more willing to help. And that's, that's not a small thing. That's actually kind of a big deal. Especially if you're going to retire and you're looking for, a place where it just feels like home. If you're willing to be kind and sociable, everyone else is as well. And like I said, when you're driving around, people wave at each other and you say hello. You may not talk to them, you may never meet them, but at least people are friendly and wave. Whereas in a big city or a big town, that just very rarely happens. But it's very commonplace out here. That's really about it. Do I have any other reasons? Nah, I think the low cost of living, friendly people, moderate climate, I guess the big one would be if you're looking to do off-grid living, there is a building permit process here that's called the opt-out process. You do have to still file for permits, and you have to give them some plans, and they want to know, the setbacks of your buildings from the edges of the road, how far from any washes or creeks you are, They do make you put in a septic system if it's a residence. You have to have a lighting plan so that you're not, you're agreeing to not contribute to light pollution, because people love looking at the stars around here. So you can, with a little bit of effort, opt out from the usual building inspection process. Like I said, you have to submit plans, but you won't have to get an electrical inspection. You won't have to get a plumbing inspection or any of that. You will just have to get your septic system and possibly a well if you're using a well. I don't. I have rain catchment. It's all about rain for me. But if you wanted to dig a well, that may have to be certified. I'm not even sure about that. But aside from that, you can build darn near anything you want as long as you have the RU4, which is rural undeveloped land, in at least 4 acres. So it's called RU4 zoning. If you have that, you are eligible to pay a small fee and to opt out. Now, there are some downsides to that, and I might do a third video just on my experience with the opt-out permit. But if you're building a non-traditional structure like straw bale or an earth ship or adobe or a container build like I am, you have those options. And there are very few places left in the country that will let you actually do that legally. So that's probably the biggest draw in general for people who discover Cochise County, and that's one of the big reasons I discovered it, or at least that's why I stayed, is because of this very unique property with a very unique building and an opportunity to build what I want just about when I want without the government, looking over my shoulder. So the opt-out process is a huge draw. The downside of that is you don't get a certificate of occupancy, which makes it almost impossible to get traditional financing. But if you're building it yourself with cash, that's not really a problem. But if you wanted to turn around and refi or take a mortgage out on your property and you're doing the opt-out process, that's probably not going to be an option for you. So there are some downsides. It's also very difficult to get insurance, but my savings account is my insurance. If one of my outbuildings or something burned to the ground, I would just have to pay out of pocket to rebuild it. Now, over time, over 20, 30 years of not having utility bills and not having insurance payments, well, if I were to set that money aside, that is essentially self-insuring. So you have to be willing to, make accommodations for the fact that you don't get a certificate of occupancy. And because of the lack of ability to get a mortgage, if you ever decide you want to sell your land or your property or your house here in Cochise County and move away, you might have to carry the note. In other words, you might have to, agree to seller financing in order to sell it, which is how I bought both of my parcels here. Both sellers agreed to carry the note and do seller financing, which for me made it a no-brainer to buy it because I didn't want to deal with the mortgage process and banks and my credit score and all that crap, right? So if you sell, you may in turn have to be willing to do seller financing or find a buyer who's willing to pay cash. Okay, so there's the top 5 or 6 reasons why you should move to Cochise County. If this was helpful or you have questions, leave a comment, ask your question. I'm happy to respond to it. And look for part 2, which will be all the reasons not to move to Cochise County, because like any place, it's not perfect and it may not be right for you. But I'm just trying to be upfront and honest and share the pros and the cons and let you make your own decision. So please like, share, subscribe if you want, and leave a comment. And that helps encourage me to make more content like this. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you maybe here in Cochise County, down at the international border with Mexico. It's a beautiful place. I encourage you to visit if nothing else. All right, so long.